Welcome to the Wire to Wire podcast. As always, it's me, your host Yusuf. Now, without further ado, let's just get right to it. So, LeBron James' streak of scoring at least 10 points in a game has officially come to an end in a close win against the Toronto Raptors. Now, one of the narratives being pushed by the mainstream media and really his fan base is that LeBron James, on the game-winning shot, sacrificed scoring 10 points in favor of an assist by passing it to an open Rui Hachimura, who ended up hitting the three that won the game. Now, the way that they have managed to remix and revise what actually happened is masterclass. That is the best kind of PR that money can buy you. Because anyone who was watching that game and saw what was happening knows that there was no sacrifice taking place at all whatsoever. He was gunning and pushing to score at least 10 points. And the proof is in the pudding. The game before, when they were getting blown out, LeBron James stayed in the game until he scored his 10 points. And then eventually he went to sit after he had reached that goal. So the idea that all of a sudden in the game against the Raptors, that suddenly he no longer cared and cared more about winning is nonsensical and it's laughable. But this is what we've come to expect from a guy like LeBron James. What happened in that Raptors game, and really the game before, and what has been transpiring since he's returned back to the team from recovering from his sciatica, is really the end of LeBron. And I think most people objectively looking at it can see that, except for LeBron fans themselves and the mainstream media. We are witnessing the end of his career in real time. He's not the same player that he used to be. He looks old, he looks slow, and honestly, he doesn't even look all that engaged and interested. And there are certain moments where you can see that he's actively trying to sabotage the team. Look at this, for example.
Knock down the jumper.
And I know Laker fans, this is about as bad as it gets when Brooks is the guy doing damage to the purple and gold. 27 assists for Phoenix on 39 baskets.
Lakers want a timeout, and the officials don't see JJ out on the court. 49 seconds left in the third. So the second and third quarters have basically belonged to the Suns.
Matching up on the both teams. What a pass. And then a kick out, connect.
So you saw that he looked disinterested, disengaged, and he was even speaking with the opposing team's bench and has absolutely zero interest in what's happening in the game. All he cared about was his individual stats and scoring his 10 points. And if you look at what happened in that Raptors game, he put up tour date numbers going 4 for 17. That's right. He was April 17th out there on the floor. And he looked old and slow. And he was trying to make things happen, but he just couldn't do it. And honestly, the Raptors defense, they had him in the blender. He was struggling offensively to make anything happen. And even when he tried to take a little fadeaway to get his 10 points, he was blocked by Scotty Barnes, showing him that, listen, this is a young man's game and you're not young. So I think that game, what it really did is it served as a wake-up call that it's time for him to walk away and leave the game. Because if he's not willing to leave the game will eventually leave him, and we're already seeing it take effect. But what was so crazy to me is how it got spun after that. He sacrificed his 10th point in favor of passing the ball to a teammate to take the shot. First of all, he didn't sacrifice anything, and that is a play that we have become accustomed to when it comes to LeBron. Very seldomly does he want to take the game-winning shot. He would rather pass it off to a teammate, let the pressure be on them, and then try to spin it like, well, I made the right basketball play, so you can't say nothing about it. That's just who he is, and that's always been a criticism that people have of him throughout his career, is that he always wants to defer in the biggest moments. And in that moment, he didn't have it. He was scared to take the game-winning shot because nothing was working for him offensively. So he had no choice but to settle for scoring less than 10 points. There was no sacrifice. He was trying his hardest to get to that 10-point mark. That's why he took 17 shots. He took 17 shots and only ended up scoring 8 points. That should tell you something. And then in the game against the Celtics, he suddenly we're hearing about this arthritic foot that he has, as well as the return of the sciatica. But really, all it is just him load managing. He doesn't want to play that second game of a back-to-back. So if you're that age and you're 40 and you're not the same player that you used to be, and you no longer want to be able to play on back-to-backs, and you're not going to do anything on the defensive end, and then your team is barely getting production out of you on the offensive end, then what are you still playing for? Just retire. No one is forcing you to play. And I think he needs to hurry up and announce that he is going to retire so he can do this little corny farewell tour and just walk away from the game. And even though the streak has ended, 1,297 games or something like that, no one cares. Honestly, no one cares. This streak was never a thing until the mainstream media made it a thing. We never looked at other great players and looked at their streak of how much, at least 10 points they scored. Like it's laughable that this is how low the bar has went. And the fact that after the game concluded, that you saw Bleacher Report, and then you saw all of these other sports publications immediately pushing the story that he sacrificed 10 points for the game-winning assist, that tells you that this is something that was done in an effort to control the narrative of what we all saw. We saw LeBron look old and slow. But rather than saying that he doesn't look like the same player and that he struggled mightily and that the Raptors defense was giving him hell, they would rather just frame it like, oh, he sacrificed for the greater good of the team. And the proof is even in the pudding. When Rui Hachimura hit that shot, you saw his teammates run to him in celebration and happiness. But what you saw was you also saw LeBron on the opposite side of the court celebrating himself. So this is what he is. And this is all he cares about. He just cares about himself and he cares about his own stats. And when you call this out, you're immediately called a hater because you're correctly identifying that he has a tendency to stat pad. So look, at this point, he's not looking like a serviceable player at this point. Like, I know people say that he's the third option and he's having to adapt to being the third option. I'm not saying this as a hot take or for shock value. I genuinely don't see him as a third option on that team. Luka's the de facto number one. Austin Reeves is the de facto number two. It's not even a conversation. And when you look at the third option and the fourth option, honestly, with the way things have been going this season, it's interchangeable between Rui Hachimura as well as DeAndre Ayton because they give you a little bit of more. And so I would say the third and fourth option is interchangeable. I would say LeBron is the fitting fifth option on that team. I don't see him as being anything more than that. I personally think what JJ Redick and the Lakers should do is have LeBron come off the bench because right now when he's in the starting lineup, they're facing sub 500 teams and they're not really facing tough competition. So they can get away with a lot of the defensive lapses and problems that they have on the defensive end having LeBron in the game. I personally think they should put him on the bench, make him come off the bench, and give him the second unit to play with those guys. That way it doesn't affect the production that you get from the guys in the starting lineup, and there's not a huge drop-off defensively. Because the reality is once the schedule starts to toughen up and things get harder, right, they're going to face more challenging competition. And these defensive lapses are going to pose a problem. Because even though the Lakers have a great record and Luka Doncic is playing incredible basketball as the star player of the team, and Austin Reeves has emerged as an all-star caliber player, and he is the definitive second best player on that team, there is still a lot of gaps that need to be filled, and the biggest problem is their ability on defense. And LeBron does not help in that regards, and he really doesn't help much offensively. So I think what JJ Redick needs to do is have him come off the bench and be the sixth man. And then afterwards, I really hope that LeBron announces his retirement and he could begin his farewell tour, and that this will be his last season in the NBA. I know definitively that this will be his last season with the Lakers, but what does his playing career have in store? Because really and truly, what are you going to get from this guy? By the end of the season, he'll be 41 years old. Now we're finding out that he has an arthritic foot, right? And then he's going to be constantly dealing with this sciatica and all of these other tic-tac injuries that come as a result of age. I mean, I heard an interview recently that he did post-game where he said you just wake up and you have one of these old man injuries. It's part of being old.
It's called old.
Just pick a body part.
You get it. You understand.
I'm old.
You understand. Just wake up with shit that you had the night before, you know.
Okay, well, if you're old, then stop playing. Who's forcing you to play? So at this point, I think we're seeing the end of LeBron. And I think LeBron needs to recognize that this is the end. I know he lacks a lot of self-awareness, but it's time to be real with yourself. And the people around him, his yes man, his posse, the guys whose bread and butter is pleasing LeBron, they need to be honest with him. And if they're not going to, then us independent creators are going to have to be the ones who tell that truth, because we know it's not going to come from the mainstream media. But that's really all I got for you guys today. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast and share with your people. You guys can also follow me and the podcast on social media. You guys can also check out my books. The links will be in the description. And just to really send this episode off on a positive note, we are going to play some of LeBron's highlights from his game against the Raptors. Until next time.